Hey, have you heard about Anchor FM? If you haven't heard about it, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First off, it's free. There's also creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will even distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can even make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make one podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That is ANCHOR.FM to get started. On today's episode number 3, I'm going to be talking about my journey of authenticity and what love has got to do with it. Listen in, see what you can pull for yourself that leaves you touched, moved, and inspired in the area of being authentic. Welcome to the Blueprint of Living an Extraordinary Life podcast. My name is Theo Tilton. I'm a licensed New Thought practitioner, public speaker, certified life mastery consultant, and development life coach. Each week, I'm on a mission to provide concrete practices in the art of being and doing and getting that physical, reliable result with a system of support, leaving you moved, inspired, and empowered on your way to living an extraordinary life. Thank you for spending time with me today. Now let's head over to the Blueprint of Living an Extraordinary Life. So what's love got to do with it? And how does love translate into being your most authentic self? Today, I'm going to bring us back to February 2005. I'm in the airport getting ready to say goodbye to my fiance. We've been together for 2 years. And my heart is breaking and it feels like it's going to pound out of my chest. You see, I've been living a lie. Will the real me please stand up? The timing was freaking awful. Not only did we just celebrate her birthday, but it was also February, same time as Valentine's Day. And the words just simply come out of my mouth. Can't do this anymore. I can no longer live this lie. You see, what I was pretending that I was some bisexual guy / straight bisexual guy in some whirlwind fantasy European love affair with a great woman, fantastic woman. And really what was going on was I was just covering up the fact that I was just truly 100% gay. And what I discovered was, for years I had been pretending to be this macho, metrosexual guy. And here I'm in my this is 2005, so 15 years ago. And so I'm basically early 30s. Who would have thought that in my early 30s that I was still struggling with sexuality and things like that? You know, I had come out of the closet much earlier in my 20s when I was in college. That's another story where my mother my mother found pictures of me kissing my first boyfriend, and she found them while cleaning my house while I was in the hospital with food poisoning. So that's a completely different story. But, being in heterosexual relationships and gay relationships and back and forth. So there was evidence for me to be thinking that maybe I am bisexual. And, it really came down to one thing. I started to ask myself a serious question. It wasn't that I wasn't in love with this woman or with any of the other past relationships that I was in. I definitely loved her and previous relationships I was in different ways. But when I began to ask the question of, what do I really love? When I think of love, what do I really love? What does my heart go towards? What is my heart pulling me towards? Where do I feel the most love? And when I began to ask that question, I began to realize that I would never truly 100% love her the way that she deserved to be loved. And so I allowed love to really come in, and love was the tool. Love was the actual tool, which is our natural way of being, by the way, because love is truly all that we are. Love is a creative force inside of the universe, inside of the human spirit. And it's always creating. And the fact that we continue to create our lives day after day after day is an act of love. And so what does love have to do with it? It was reflecting on love, being with love, and with my heart, and where my heart was leading me, that I began to see all of the signs that full admission to myself, self-care and loving myself, that I could no longer live a lie. I could no longer tolerate lying to myself. And the pain that I was feeling in that was that I loved myself too much and I was lying to myself. So in a way, I was beating myself up terribly. And it was probably one of the most valuable lessons I had ever learned, was that in discovering what would I love and what would love do in this case, what would love do, that being authentic, being 100% authentic to who you are and where you're coming from, and honoring your feelings and honoring your emotion, and just honoring it for what it is, and being present to circumstance and condition, and knowing that there is something inside of me, inside of you, everyone listening to this podcast right now, there's something inside of you that is just so much bigger, so much greater than any condition, and is this power, this energy, this force, this vibration, and it is love. Love is the creative force of the universe. And when we pay attention to that, we can truly discover our authentic self. And that's what I did. And so we broke off the engagement and went our separate ways. And you could say on my side it was cowardice. And to some extent it was, and I own that. Why was it cowardice? Well, she happened to live in Europe, and I was in the States, and so it was easy to say goodbye at the airport. I will admit it was the actual unleashing of the breakup and the actual doingness that my heart felt like it was going to pound out of my chest. But the future, the years spent down the road, like if it just kept going and going and going, and that pent up resentment that I already felt towards myself by not honoring who I was truly being, who I was, being a gay man. I was already feeling the impact of that. I was already feeling the impact of years wasted and not truly loving, not truly giving someone what they truly deserve, to be loved. And as much as I did love to some degree, I didn't have that full space where it was more of a space of loving because you're another kind, tender-hearted human being. It wasn't a love like, you are my soulmate, you are my all in all. It wasn't like that. Now, I've learned lots of things since this time. Unleashing this space of vulnerability, getting more in touch with my own authenticity as a gay man, going through counseling and going into therapy and going to different courses, personal development courses. I discovered something different and unique about authenticity, and that who we think we are is not truly authentically who we are. It's some kind of construct or story that we've invented as a child, and we live our life from that space, from that place of conditioning or software programming. And it's kind of like a fish in a bowl of water, right? Like a fish is born into water, and then it moves into, let's say, a fish tank, and then a fish is inside water, and then a fish doesn't know that it's inside of water until the fish is removed from the water. And then the fish realizes, oh my gosh, this is air, that's water, I need to go back to the water, or whatever. So there's this preconceived conditioning ideas that we generate as we're younger, and it slowly over time, that programming becomes like the water in the fish tank. It's no different than, let's say, if you were born in the operating room and you're born and your mother gives birth to you, and there is a hum in the background, and it's always humming, hum, and that sound is always humming, but you were born into that hum, and you live your entire life, and there's this hum, and you don't know that hum really isn't natural, or that it's not actually supposed to be there. And all of a sudden, the hum turns off. And then there's a new awareness. Like, oh my gosh, what happened? It's silent. And then you realize that you were not in silence your entire life. You were actually inside of this background context, that there was this hum. And it's no different than the stories we create about ourselves. And so I had ideas of love, and I had ideas of what love and relationship should look like, and to some extent you could say that the examples that I had in life, my grandparents had a very, very long lasting, from the time I was born until my grandmother passed away. Like, they were together for decades and decades and decades and decades, right? And so you could say that was an ideal example of togetherness and love. And but then there is the chemistry love, the chemistry that burns inside of you. And I was discovering that the story that I was telling myself of what love was had to be man and woman, and that there was something wrong with me. And that story had been put in place because of all of the religiosity in my life, growing up as a born-again Baptist and basically having a death sentence every Sunday, going to hell every Sunday, knowing in the background that there was this something there that was potentially wrong with me, and I have to fix that, and that always being a background, always being the hum that was in the background. And then all of a sudden, experimenting, discovering who I really was, allowing my heart to be broken open a few times by same-sex partners, and then realizing that, my heart, my authentic way of being is moving me over in this other direction. And it wasn't until I actually had the courage to say yes to it that my entire life changed. My entire life changed completely. And so that is what love has to do with it. When we are opened up to our authentic selves, when we allow our authentic selves to come through and shine, that is the truest form of self-care, of loving thyself. When we honor who we truly are, whether we're gay or whether we're straight or whether we're bisexual, it's just knowing the truth of who we are and how we operate in this body, on this planet, at this time. Who we're being creatively, who we're being artistically, who we're being lovingly, how we show up in the world in the area of service to others, or service to ourselves, or service to a company, or service to a neighborhood, or a friend, or a family member, or I could just keep going on and on about this topic, but it really shows up in what do we authentically want? What story are we telling ourselves? Are we doing things because we think we should be doing them? Are we doing them because we truly want to be doing them? Are we doing them because we've told ourselves a story, and if we don't do it this way, someone's going to be talking about us, or the family is not going to accept me, or things like that? When we begin to see that that's what's actually going on, the authenticity lies underneath of that, because that is not who we authentically are. When we're listening to storylines of like, Aunt so-and-so isn't going to love me if I'm not this, and then all of a sudden I start pretending to be something. The moment we start pretending to be something, to override and obfuscate, meaning to scramble or to cover up something, it's like the jigsaw puzzle. Like someone puts a puzzle together and it's like, no, it can't be that way, and they start shaking up all the pieces to make it look very complicated and convoluted. And so when we do that, it's like we are pretending something, and we're pretending that everything is fine the way that it is. We might be, at least I was doing that. I was pretending that it was all okay. I was pretending that I wanted to get married. I was pretending that I wanted to move to Europe. I was pretending that I was 100%, attracted. I was pretending that there was all this chemistry. Pretending, it was a lot of pretending. And when I really honed in to love, when I really got clear on where my heart was and what I was actually doing to myself, I discovered that who I really was a gay man that wasn't authentically being himself. And so that is my story of my authenticity journey, and that is exactly what love has got to do with it. So what do you love? Where are you being inauthentic? Where can you be authentic? Where can you show yourself more love and compassion? Where can you give yourself a break and be honest with yourself? These are the important questions. And if we focus on that, being authentic with ourselves is actually loving ourselves and caring for ourselves, then nothing else matters. All right. Thank you so much, listeners. I had a really great time being vulnerable with all of you. I hope that you got something out of this today. I know that I did. And I haven't really shared that story with many people, and now I'm sharing it with all of you. So until next time, talk to you soon. Thank you for joining me and listening to today's episode. I trust that there is something that you experienced on today's podcast that has left you touched, moved, and inspired. I would love to connect with you. If you're an Anchor member, you can leave me a message and leave any kind of question that I can answer on future podcasts. If you'd like to hear more about Life Mastery, Dream Builder, or other personal development programs that I coach with my clients, you can email me directly at theo@theotilton.com. And you can find me on all social media channels, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. My handle is Theo Tilton. Also, you can find me on Facebook at Theo Tilton Coaching. Thank you.